What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. I was out at a customer's house a couple days ago and brought a Wiliams Satin Doll back from the dead. Satin Doll has a playfield which did not look very interesting to me, and I had never played one before. This game had a few issues. There was a missing ball index coil, a sluggish bonus stepper, and various switch issues, a broken switchblade here and there, a couple of misadjusted switches, a couple of dirty switches, which is nothing unusual at all for an EM that's been sitting for a while. It also had a small mouse nest under the apron. What was unusual about that is just that it was localized to only under the apron. But beyond that, took care of those issues and the game fired right up. Now, immediately upon firing up, the game locked on the lowest point chime coil, so there's a stuck switch on the playfield. And in looking for that, I found out that there were several screws which were driven through the playfield and shorting this switch out, one of the rollover switches on the left-hand side. So backing those screws out, adjusting the switch, then replacing with smaller wood screws took care of that problem. And then the game played. Most of the steppers in the head were in pretty good shape. It looked like it had been shopped fairly recently, especially the head. The cabinet, on the other hand, had some mildew, had some issues. But other than that, it was all good. So I wanted to talk about playing the game, though, because, again, I had never played one. And the later 70s Wiliams EMs, with very few exceptions, really do not grab me. I like them. I rarely turn down the chance to play pinball, so it's not like I would walk away from one, necessarily. But some of the layouts and methods of scoring and so forth are not quite as interesting as some of their counterparts. And a lot of the playfield design was geometric shapes and so forth, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not as eye-catching as some of the earlier designs or some of the later ones when they did make the transition into solid state. So, looking at this game, there's a upper left flipper, and there are 3 flippers at the bottom. There are 5 rollovers on the left-hand side up above the upper flipper, and there are 5 stand-up targets in a bank at the top of the playfield. Above this bank, right at the ball arch level, there are another 5 rollover buttons, and then arranged on the right-hand side, almost directly opposite the upper flipper, there is a bank of 4 stand-up targets which are marked with the star. In between the upper flipper and that bank of stand-up targets, there is a square which has 5 rollover buttons labeled 1 through 5, helpfully. Your main goal as you progress through the game is to roll over each of the 5 in that central square twice. And this will light double bonus. Having only played a couple of test games to verify function, I'm not sure of all the rules. However, each of the star targets, when lit, does something. I'm not sure if they each advance your bonus, and when you have them all lit, it lights special. I'm not really certain. What I do know is that the right outlane is incredibly hungry, and there are 2 flippers on the right-hand side at the bottom. There's only one on the left-hand side at the bottom. But the ones on the right-hand side, if you were to trap the ball on the lower flipper, it would roll out. Now, what is one of the more unique and fascinating things about this particular game is the arrangement of pop bumpers. There are 2 pop bumpers located in the lower left, and there is no left outlane. So they're kind of in this little alcove, and if you were to shoot a shot from the bottom right-hand flipper, it would pretty much go right in between the pop bumpers. Now, what's awesome is when the game is running well, the ball rockets back and forth between the pop bumpers and really racks up the score. It's pretty darn cool to see. There are few arrangements of pops that I've seen which are more active than these ones. So I've got to say I was quite impressed with the game just from that. And this is on a game where, again, the artwork did not grab me. So the backglass artwork, I should mention, is actually pretty cool. It's like a it's some kind of singer who is represented on the backglass. There's a band in silhouette behind her, and she's in the spotlight. There are audience members in the front. It's pretty cool. And this particular machine had 455 blinkers behind the name of the game, so Satin and Doll would blink, and I love seeing that in games. I think it adds to the appeal quite a bit. So, aside from that, though, the artwork is pretty much just geometric shapes. The plastics have some artwork on them, which further enhances the kind of spotlight, television cameras, and so forth kind of idea. But beyond that, not very much. So, again, this would have been a game if there was a whole bank of games that I had never played before. This likely would have been one of the last ones that I would have walked up to. However, having played, a couple of quick rounds on it, I've got to say that this is one that I probably want to spend quite a bit more time with. Another thing that's interesting is that you can loop the ball back around the top of the arch from that upper left flipper. That shot is pretty neat, and it's very fast. And when it comes back down, the game's making all kinds of noise because you're rolling over all these buttons. It's a fun, exciting portion of this game. So that's 2 things on this that I think are very appealing. That upper shot, and then the pop bumper arrangement in the bottom left. I think that adds the excitement. Now, one thing that I would say is that the second flipper in the bottom right, I feel like they probably could have gotten away without that. Now, there are some shots which are very difficult to make, or likely impossible to make without that flipper, but they tend to involve the stand-ups, which are of not much use unless you have special lit. Now, when special is lit, one of the stand-ups will be lit, and when you hit it, you'll collect your replay. But otherwise, they're really not something that you want to shoot for. You really want to shoot for that grid in the middle or the stars on the right. So, again, I'd have to say that first impressions or appearances can be deceiving, and it's worthwhile sometimes to dig into a game that you might not think much of. And I've kind of written off a large chunk of the early, mid-70s with Wiliams. And this is making me rethink that a bit. So, thank you very much for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at nbaldridge. And you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com, on which you can purchase your very own For Amusement Only t-shirt. And you can remember the words which I've uttered, which are, appearances can be deceiving, and it's certainly worth giving it a shot. So, thanks very much, and I'll talk to you next time.